Hey everybody, what's going on? It's 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, which means you're tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News. I'm producer Lauren, and today we're going to be speaking with Ron Christensen, the CEO of Grasshopper Kiosks. But first, we're going to get into a little bit of cannabis news. So please welcome our hosts, Tom from Cannabis Industry Lawyer and Josh Kincaid from The Talking Hedge. What's going on, guys?
Well, I kind of made the state of Illinois' weekend in the sense that I was reading the FAQ section. I didn't bring up the copy of that, but I did just make a page on our website, Cannabis Industry Lawyer. And if you go there, / disproportionately impacted area map, this disproportionately impacted area is exceedingly important when it comes to the issue of who is a social equity applicant. You get points for being a social equity applicant. In fact, 20% of your points are based on that. However, in the FAQ, the frequently asked questions that was provided by the state of Illinois on their IDPFR, the Professional and Financial Regulatory Authority in Illinois' website, it had this time for the map and these two agencies in which they were going to release the disproportionately impacted agents map to the world so we could look at it and determine who is a social equity applicant. That has been changed. They have re-updated the FAQ, and they've deleted the deadline, which was last Tuesday, the 26th, which was 2 months after the effective date of June 26th when the governor signed it. And they've also deleted one of the two agencies in Illinois' government that is supposed to be coming up with this map. So that was pretty big news. And now it looks like one agency is in charge of making this map, and I'm not sure when they're going to release it, but they're supposed to have the applications next month. What happened out west, Josh?
Well, our regulatory agency, the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, gave us 8 days before this Labor Day weekend to come up with our own social equity response to their program. So they kind of bombarded us just a week before. It's due today, as a matter of fact. So they gave us 8 days before that weekend to kind of give a response, and it's long-winded. It doesn't have a lot of information. In fact, I like Illinois' social equity. It has $750,000 or less in income for the previous year, 51% ownership. But you have to be there 5 years. That's the part I don't really like about Illinois. Is 5 years in cannabis is a decade. So whatever Washington decides to do with the limited time they've given us to respond, time will tell. But it's not looking good right out the bat.
Yeah, the social equity aspect for Illinois, the more that I dig into it, the more I'm a little bit frustrated and concerned that it appears to be a nothing burger, or at least a giveaway to the rich, because they're trying to improve the diversity and then to give access to people that have been really disproportionately injured by the drug wars to the cannabis industry. And so there's really just 3 ways that you can get a social equity status. Is number one, you can have an arrest for an expungible offense. These are low-level marijuana and cannabis arrests, in the sense that, intent to distribute less than an ounce or less, or possession of up to a pound or less. And then that's one silo. If you have that and you're at 51% ownership and control of that, you get those points. Or you're in a different silo, and that is if you live in one of these disproportionately impacted areas. We don't know where those are, which really stinks. So then, 50% of them we don't know. And then the third one is if at the time that you apply, you're already a business and you have more than 10 full-time employees, and 51% of them, aka 6 of those 10 full-time employees, are from number 1 or number 2. That is, that they were arrested for an expungible offense, or they live in one of these disproportionately impacted areas. We don't know what those are. So as this application is supposed to be here in a month, what are we going to do with the 2/3 of the social equity application that we don't know how to deal with? And it's 20% of the score. So like, if somebody nails it, that might be the difference between getting a license and missing it.
Right. And I have no doubt that it's going to be a lot of individuals who have the money and capability to get that license. There's advantages of getting ahead of the game, and whether or not they hold that license for 5 years is irrelevant. As long as you get the license, you're in
Yeah,
business. You can sell it.
because that 5-year restriction, basically it includes like a give back of the money that you may have gotten from the state. And that might not be that much money in
Right.
terms of cannabis dollars. I mean, a 50% reduction of the application fee, $2,500, or of the actual license fee itself. So that's $30,000 a year. And then you may have actually been granted access to capital and funds. Those will be the ones that may have more of a chilling effect on it. But, if you got like $500,000 from this low interest loan grant program or whatever, and somebody wants to buy your license, I don't think that $500,000 is going to scotch the deal.
No. And even the fund that's been set aside for those impacted areas on the war on drugs hasn't been successful either. So if they're going to roll out additional programs, I'm not all that optimistic. Having been in banking and seeing, how the SBA loans don't really help minorities, I just hope that these regulatory authorities in cannabis can do a little bit better. I'm not optimistic with the rollout, though.
Yeah, but what I really thought was a really cool holiday weekend, 5 p.m. on a Friday news dump last weekend was Donald Trump. The Donald Trump, the stuff that he said was very, very vague, but very, very direct in the sense that states are doing that, or states are making that decision. It's not like he says states are legalizing it, but he says states are making that decision. We're watching that and we will allow it. And so I had to do a quick video about, Mr. Trump, what's the limits of your executive power? And I made a fairly silly video where I just went way beyond the pale of what the executive power allows. But I think that it's excellent in the sense that Donald Trump is saying to the media that they are going to basically allow the states to legalize cannabis, which is great and hopefully foretells a victory when the Congress reconvenes here any day now and we get the Safe Banking Act passed.
It's the status quo. I don't necessarily put a whole lot behind any political figure and what they say, but how I interpret it is what he's saying is that the states are doing it and the feds are allowing it. It's not like they will allow it. They're just letting it happen.
Right. But, in the 30 years from the war on drugs and we're coming to stop you and like just say no to we'll allow it that's pretty quick speed. Did you hear the stories out of Florida, though?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let me just share my screen real quick. All right, so the key issue in the medical marijuana for the states of Florida, and you have to understand, Florida is a little bit different than the other states in the sense that Florida has a ballot initiative. And so because of that ballot initiative, it creates cognitive dissonance between the people that put the vote to it and then the legislature that's like, so we have to do this. Well, we'll do this. And Florida said that they wanted medical marijuana, but then the legislature said that if you wanted to get one of these cannabis licenses, that you needed to be completely vertically integrated. Did you hear about that?
I just heard like 30 years experience in class. I haven't dove into the details yet, but
all right. Well, I mean, so you have to be completely vertically integrated.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So like the licenses that they're giving out are being valued at like 50, 60, 70 million dollars because you're completely vertically integrated. So you have the dispensing, you have the flowers. I'm not sure if they have a transport, but the extractor, the infuser, and you'd have to have all those licenses plus all that crazy experience that they said to be able to be issued one of these licenses. And so that's getting fought out in the Supreme Court, whether or not that's legal to do. And then here was the other cool headline from Florida. How many doctors does it take to justify or certify 94,850 Floridians?
Ooh, 6.
Actually, if by the rules of what was that? Price is Right, you win, because the actual correct answer is 89. And so Where is that? They're at just 89 doctors certified, 94,850 Florida patients. So, I mean, it's an interesting kind of rubric that they have down there in Florida. But Illinois has done something a little bit better in the sense that they, in their craft grow system, have created laws in the sense that they are going to try to really address the 800-pound gorilla of indoor grown cannabis, the cost of energy. And so, you know, that's got to be big. And I'm not sure if some of the people that you interview discuss that type of stuff, but the energy requirements, though, for cannabis are like, they're well known. And so with Illinois, now they're going to, no more than 36 watts per square foot of cultivation canopy. And so they have to use these DLC approved lights, automatic watering system. They have to have specific watering events. It's really, really interesting that the state of Illinois is getting into green cannabis, but I think that's where like a lot of the business can kind of live and thrive with the amount of advancement and technological requirement that the regulators are putting on the craft grows and the indoor cultivation.
And I'm surprised that California didn't lead the way with that type of regulation. They tend to do that. But to put it in context for somebody in Illinois looking at licenses, we see partial licenses in California selling for $5 million, and that could be with 4 or 5 other partners. Phoenix, Arizona, I've seen $20 million for a retail license. And in Washington,
$20 million for a retail license?
$20 million in Phoenix, Arizona for a retail license. And that's because it's limited, just like in Vegas, Nevada, it's very limited. And then in Washington, we've seen licenses be given away for the future hope of getting 5 to 6% royalties on whatever is sold, literally giving licenses away. So when you had mentioned these tens of millions of dollars in Florida, it can kind of go both ways. If you're good, that's great. You can get 5 to 20 million. If you're terrible, you're going to have to give that license away and hope that somebody else can actually grow it and produce a product for you.
Man, that's something else. But, you mentioned California, and that's where our guest is going to be joining us here in just a bit. And he's got some technical acumen and something that's really, really interesting and different to the industry. I'm going to let Lauren take it away.
Yeah, come on in, Ron.
Welcome to Cannabis Legalization News, Ron.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Well,
great to meet you guys.
To your business.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Ron Christensen. I'm the CEO of Grasshopper Kiosks. We're a fully automated, compliant system for automated retail.
Cool. And what does that all entail, a fully automated system for retail?
Let me give you a screen share here. You guys can look at, hold on one second. Screen share.
Yep, it's the most elegant of all the screen sharing technologies. These are the good people at StreamYard. They do wonderful stuff.
See if I can get this up here.
Well, I might be able to hit it right there for you. Why don't you give us a background on it? I have your site up. Can you see it?
Yeah, I just popped it on. If you want to back that one down.
Sure. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, the general idea is that we've created an ecosystem around the consumer experience, leading with our flagship product, which is a vending terminal that checks all the boxes for compliance, that allows consumers to come up and browse products and quickly shop, and the products are dispensed from that terminal. That's our flagship. So
that's fantastic. So it says hops THC now in stereo. I'm assuming that one of the hot new items out in the California market is some type of THC brew.
Yeah, and that's one of our current partners that we're working with. We do branded solutions also for brands that are seeking to enter the market in California. We're looking to do this also throughout the country.
Fascinating. So when you say branded solutions, what does that mean? Is that white labeling or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we would white label the machine for them. I think I'm back here on the screen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'd white label the solution for them. that would have their brand and products inside of it.
Awesome. And so how do you say that it's compliant? Why do you say it's compliant? What makes your stuff, what makes your machines compliant?
Sure. Yeah. What we've done is we've integrated to the point of sale systems in the industry, which allows us to report the data directly back to systems like Metric that are ran by the states, or they're implemented by the states, ran by these individual companies. So we're able to do that. We also require ID swiping at the machine, which ties directly into the POS so that the consumer is vetted a couple times before they purchase cannabis.
Yeah, because like each one of them, they really do have to be carded. Their transaction needs to be recorded if they're going to be complying with the point of sale systems that are required under any particular state's regulatory rubric. So what types of compliance are required in California when you make a cannabis purchase?
Right. So I don't know how you guys do it in Illinois, but out here you have to check in at the front of the dispensary before you're able to enter. Is that similar there?
Right. That's how it is here. Show your card.
Yeah.
They enter your card into a computer, but right now it's still all medicinal. And so we'll
Gotcha.
see. And it looks like from the statute, it's going to be very similar with the adult use. So is it very similar in California?
Yeah, exactly. So they've adopted those same rules. So when you check in California, you come up to the front, you check in, show your ID. Medical is almost non-existent as I can see it currently in the medical or in the retail space. I think that we thought that there would be more medical. We started in medical in early 17 and started deploying machines then. And there was very little regulatory oversight in the medical world. Today, that's changed quite a bit. We have quite a bit of layered kind of rules and regs that we have to adhere to. So regarding the process itself, after you've checked in at the front desk, then you simply come to the machine, swipe your ID again because you've been vetted at the door, which then allows you into the machine. You're able to do a purchase there. And then, of course, you've still got all the bagging requirements that you have. So in addition to that, there are some rules in different municipalities about how the equipment's secured. So in some municipalities, we have to bolt down machines and so on. So it's the state's kind of left it up to the municipality a bit to build their own structure around what the state's regs are. And so you see some of the cities increasing, and then you see others that just kind of follow what the state's laid out.
That's neat. I mean, like the thing in Illinois, there's like, because I was reviewing, I'm like, oh, wow, that's a really interesting concept of your business, for Grasshopper, a vending machine for cannabis. And I could see how it could make it safer and like your inventory control and your diversion prevention strategy, because you load the machine dispenses it takes your money and all that, and it keeps the accounts. It makes a lot of sense. It is specifically prohibited in the state of Illinois. It says no vending machines. And I just think that that's kind of fascinating that you have to have these SOPs and standard operating procedures. And it's going to be like, well, you can't employ too much of a machine to keep this cannabis sale automated, because that's not allowed.
Yeah, I think that as time goes on, I think things like that are going to loosen up. I think what they wanted to prohibit is people putting vending machines into public areas. I think that in Washington State, for instance, there was a company, and I don't recall the name right off the top of my head, but they deployed some machines there. And pretty soon after, the state did a unanimous ruling that they were going to ban these in, I believe it was in the state Senate. Is that right? Josh, you're up in Washington. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah. So I think some of these are knee-jerk reactions to problems. And I think that without all the information, regulators are going to opt for the quickest solution, which is to outlaw. I think that they need
easiest. It's so much easier to say no than it is to say, wait, what's this very complex problem and the solution that you have for it? I just have to say no. That was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. And so, and I think that's a lot of the things that are happening now are based on that. You guys were talking about this social equity thing earlier, and I think that I agree with what you guys were saying. That this is definitely not built for the guy who's been in trouble before or has a history selling cannabis and did time for it. I mean, the program is built for people that have money. And they need to figure out better ways, but this is going to take time. All these things take time, right? And you can't expect that they happen overnight.
And that's something we were talking about before the show, about how this industry is like the dot-com boom of 20 years ago, totally. Plastics of when the Graduate movie that came out. And it's just fascinating how entrepreneurial and how fast and how without rules it really kind of feels like sometimes. And then like right now, you're sitting a few states away and they're approaching this automated retail machine as a theft mitigation, as a security enhancement of their current status quo. And meanwhile, over here in Illinois, we're like, oh, no, can't do that because of that misconception of like what a vending machine is. Like it's going to be a Pepsi machine down the street and you're just able to feed quarters to it. That was one of the questions that I actually wanted to ask you about your machine was, did it have the ability to read somebody's ID to really match that sale to that particular person in some type of database to prevent this problem in legalized states called looping? Have you guys ever heard of that?
Yeah, we do. And in fact, in California, one of the parts of the law that I don't particularly like is that there is a daily limit for cannabis, which in practical terms is just a thing that most people would never hit. And that's an ounce of cannabis a day and 8 grams of concentrate, which would cost you probably $1,000.
I said, speak for yourself, Ron.
Well, in that case, yeah, okay. So you have a rule that you put in place. Other states have done this, I think, more effectively, where they've said, we have limits per purchase, so that you can go in many times and purchase throughout the day. So what we've done to address that is we've included, there's a piece of software that we've added on that does validate state IDs. We have compliance all the way up to facial recognition. I don't think that people in cannabis are ready for that. I think it's very early. So we wanted to adopt methodology that would allow people to be comfortable with what they were doing or ways that they're used to kind of validating their identity. And so that's why we opted for ID scanning versus going for something more robust, like a facial recognition.
It's not that you couldn't do it. It's just that you thought it would be a bad idea and freak people out. Well,
we asked the consumer. So we actually polled the consumer and determined, that this was an intrusion according to what they were giving us as far as feedback.
Wow.
And on the back of that, with compliance, if you're in a spot like Denver or Portland and you're required to have that exit bag, when you buy the product, are you able to kind of see it, or does it just have that exit bag that you can't see? I mean, how does it stay in compliance, or do you buy it and then someone puts it in the exit bag before you leave? How does that work?
Yeah, so in California, we have child-proof bagging now on all products. So as far as that goes, some jurisdictions require exit bags, some do not. Some just require opaque bags. And so we at the machine provide bags right near it, and the consumer is required to bag upon exiting in most cases. Now, regarding the product itself, I don't know if you know much about kiosks, but let me explain a bit here. Consumers that use kiosks tend to spend more money. This is just kind of known by several studies that have been done in the kiosk industry over the years, and that's why you see this movement towards self-service with companies like McDonald's, where they're now implementing huge programs for self-checkout. And so when the product is purchased from our kiosk, we actually blow that product up. We put a large image of that product on the screen, and then additionally, we add all the information associated with that product. For instance, strengths, what the function of that product will be for you, and things like that. So we give a large image and a description of that product on the screen. And it seems to do fine for the consumer. User interfaces are funny. Again, it's really listening to the consumer and giving them what they need. Most customers that are purchasing through machines are repeat customers. This is not for the first-time customer. It's not for the customer that wants to consult with a bud tender. So this
what about
is really
customers that don't want to buy suppositories. Like I don't want to go up to a counter,
right.
a kid, and buy a product like that. So is there an option for those other products as well as after hours? Is there some regulations that could be passed or allowed to have after hours vending machines with your technology for facial recognition and MJ certification recognition and all of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to share the screen again here. Get to this Chrome tab.
I had no idea about that. People were more likely to buy more money or buy more stuff from a kiosk. And then the idea of them not having the let's just put it on that real quick. All right, go ahead, Ron.
Okay, yeah. So regarding technologies, our flagship is our Grasshopper Kiosk, and that comes in a few flavors. We do that in a beverage machine, which dispenses cans and bottles, and then we also do that in a product machine, which the current model that we're building and deploying is a 36 SKU machine. So it will hold up to 36 individual SKUs. So you could put some of those products if you knew, and again, the data is going to dictate, kind of what's selling, what's not selling. But the analytics side of this gets really interesting because I think that we can start to target specific products that may have an inclination for some privacy. And we can start putting those products in. Currently, we use like the top selling products that are being moved by the dispensary. Or if it's a brand partnership, then it would be that brand specific. And so we would do more of a store within a store type of application, which would include some cabinetry for displaying products and maybe some area where you have some smell bottles if you have different types of flour in the machine and you want to display those. So you can add some physical attributes to the store within a store build out, which essentially is a surround around the machine with that cabinetry. Now, for the people that do want self-checkout, we do have a product called Grasshopper Pay, which is essentially a curated list of machines, similar to how we curate the kiosks. And then that would be for the consumer, for instance, that wanted to access these more private products. You could have 50 to 100 products or more that you're selling through these touch screens that are either wall mount or standalone, or almost like you see at Home Depot, where you have the self-checkout. And Safeways in our area have them. I don't know what your major grocer is out there, but so that's what that product is designed for.
You would actually have an individualized payment solution. So like I could check out with the stuff that I bought out of the kiosk and pay with credit cards, or what type of payment solutions are you guys offering? Is it still just like feed the cash into the machine?
Yeah, well, currently it is. There are solution providers out there that claim that they are totally compliant, and that we will do some introductions to the ones that we have vetted. I think we know that there are risks inherent with doing any type of payment that's card based, but there are e-wallet solutions available. There are several types of solutions that we can integrate into our systems. So I think there's a lot of options popping up out there, and I think that the states are getting more laxed around the banking side and more comfortable with banking as the transactions are tracked. Everything is compliant in the system with what the state's requiring. I think that banks are feeling more comfortable banking cannabis businesses.
Yeah, I think so. And I think they were feeling more comfortable even before Trump said that thing over the weekend. But the Safe Banking Act coming up and passing in this session that they have before the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the month, I think is huge. And hopefully they actually pass something. But I thought it was really interesting that your state is different in the sense that not only can you guys have a vending machine like we can't have in Illinois, but also you can have, what did you call them? Smell bottles? What the heck is a smell bottle? We are. Yeah.
Washington, I think, doesn't have those also, right?
No, we're not allowed to have that. You can in Oregon, though.
Yeah.
So is it literally just a bottle with a nug in it? It's like, hey, would you like a smell of this?
Pretty much. That's exactly. And they have little lids that pop up.
Smell.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The gram that goes in there to make the smell needs to be tracked. I mean, like, I'm not kidding. Like, I like the vending machine concept that you have, especially with the state of Illinois, that requires when you leave the cultivation facility, you need to be packaged, just like I guess with Prop 215 in California. Is that the one where you guys had to have complete packaging and it was childproof, but when it was shipped out? I'm not sure. In Illinois, that's how it has to be here. Like the stuff is childproof and pre-packed when it's shipped out, and there's no bulk flour, there's no smell jars, nothing like that. Everything is. We don't use a kiosk or a vending machine like you've been showing, but we use a lot of just safes. So like people will go and they have their inventory in a safe, and it's a very bad user experience. I mean, it's like walking into a prison almost and asking for your medicine. They're like, hang on, I have to go get that. It's in lockup.
Yeah, I totally feel what you're saying. That's the reason that we're developing Grasshopper lockers right now, is because for the front office and back office, solving those issues that you're talking about are extremely important, and giving solutions that make sense for not only the retail stores, but also kind of the whole chain of custody along the way. And so we're working pretty diligently right now on developing that solution, which would include a weight measurement solution that would be integrated into the lockers. So you could actually put something in a large locker, say a 10-pound bag of cannabis, that would then be on a scale and it would continue to be weighed at all times so that you knew if something was happening. And then we tie that into a mobile app also. And our mobile app can be white labeled or gray labeled. And so those are kind of the products that are in development. And really it's all about tracking through the custody, through that life cycle. And no, I get what you're saying though about the.
Yeah, but when you look at those regulations that they're trying to achieve, it is exactly what you're talking about. And these types of solutions help you achieve what the regulation is trying to do. And that's the tracking of all the sales, all the proceeds, and all the grams. And it's like it's a machine that's specifically designed to do that, but you're not allowed to have the machine. It's very strange. But, that's one of the things that you can do to lobby different states to adopt the type of legislation that you need to enable the continued spread of your business. I mean, currently that provision, it's under the prohibition section of the Illinois statute for cannabis dispensaries, where it's just a line item, no vending machines. So like you're kind of locked out of the industry here immediately. But then if you start lobbying them, maybe in a subsequent amendment to this act, that'll get excised, and then you can access this market because it's going to accomplish the ends of the statute that the state wants. They want to track the product. They also want to understand who's buying it so that they can control the supply, and it's quite elegant.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Ron,
Yeah.
I'd like to work with you on getting Washington to allow vending machines. I'm chair on a committee to overturn a felony in Washington state that doesn't allow for the operation and maintenance of a marijuana lounge. So we have to overturn that felony with a lobbyist group called the Cannabis Alliance. So I'd like to work with you and another gentleman who's a chair committee for packaging because we can't have recycling either in Washington. So it would be amazing if one of your vending machines had an option to bring in packaging. Dude tubes are everywhere. One of the most number one products sold in most of the emerging markets is pre-rolls. So if we can recycle that stuff in one of your machines, that'd be phenomenal. So offline, let's touch base about that.
I'd love to do that. I think it's a great initiative. I definitely think about the waste a lot related to especially vape pens. I've noticed that some of the brands like Dose It in California are starting to have recycling stations built into their build outs in store, which is really cool. So this would kind of follow suit with that. But I agree. That this is another huge area, an issue area for the industry.
It's an uphill battle. We can't have recycling. We can't have vending machines. We can't have marijuana lounges. So it's
and you are Washington State, one of the old guard of cannabis legalization.
Half decade just slogging through it, Learning a lot.
That's amazing. But that gets back to the distinction that we were just talking about earlier. You guys are both in the legislative ballot initiative type states where you, as the people, tell the legislature what to do, and they're like, maybe we'll do this instead, or we'll do that. And then you still have to keep battling them and battling the continued kind of like, what do they call it, general prejudice that they have against cannabis. And I thought, it just seems like some of the stuff that comes out of Washington State, that prejudice is still alive and well, even though you guys have had lawful cannabis for 10, 11 years. When did you guys go medical?
We went medical, I think, in 96, and then we went rec. We became a regulated market in July of 2015. And I don't think, it's not really my opinion or even a conspiracy theory. I think it's really well known in Washington that the regulators, being the LCB or Liquor and Cannabis Board, they do not like cannabis. That's why they threw out with 8 days left, they're going to let us, give a quick opinion about social equity and how to implement, small business growth opportunities and some other things. But why only give us a week before Labor Day? It's because they don't value our opinions. They don't care. And they just want to implement what they're doing, or whoever came in with the money first. Right. And so it's like that Friday news dump. They just kind of hope to throw it out there and see what happens. Maybe it'll get buried by the end of the weekend. But Washington is one of those states where I do not recommend doing business in, but it is a microcosm that should be examined thoroughly so you know what worst case scenario is in your own market.
Would you say, I just have a quick follow-up on that. I think I saw something recently on CBD from hemp being passed in Washington regarding the consumption side of using CBD in products that are consumed. Is that true?
Yeah, we got jealous of California last year banning edibles and beverages with CBD products. So yeah, we followed suit on that for whatever reason. I don't know whose idea that was, but
that was literally last week's show. We had somebody's business just completely railroaded by the state. One day she's at Hemp Fest. She's got herself a tent. She spent all that money. She's going to have a product launch. It's going well. The next day, it's illegal.
She's literally out of business.
And that's after fighting 5 years trying to transition from medical to the regulated market and then saying, okay, I'm going to pivot to CBD, and then having that hit you. That's a small business nightmare. That's tough.
And that's just the par for the course kind of with the cannabis industry. Ron, how long have you been in the industry?
Well, I came from the ATM industry and kiosk industry. So my time in that industry was about 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I migrated. I was looking at cannabis over the last 10 years or so, and then migrated in officially about 3 years ago. And I feel like it's been 10 years in 3 years.
Why do you feel like it's been 10 years in 3 years?
I'll just tell you that the pivots are ridiculous in this industry. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
You think you have a business plan, to your point about your friend there that went to the hemp show, and then the next thing you know, you don't have a business. And so I think that there has to be better leadership on the legislative side and in terms of thinking about small businesses and how they can exist in an industry that's got to be dominated by major corporations in very short order. So I think, I really think, and I think what you guys are talking about, these kind of issues are very important, and they need to become front of mind for people in the industry, we're not going to have small players.
That's really absolutely important, and it really depends on how the regulations go. So one of the things that I'm impressed with the Illinois regulation, I'm not thrilled about the number of licenses, but I am thrilled about the restriction of the overlap of ownership of licenses. So the most dispensary licenses any player can touch is just 10. So because of that, you've really dispersed the industry so that no one MSO is going to be so dominant. Like, because they've greenlit more or less 500 dispensaries. So 10 over 500, that's not enough to be a major player. That's not like Google that's going to be, dominating 80% of the search market. And they've done the same thing when it comes to, if you own the cultivation license, you are restricted on, can you own the craft grow, the smaller license? You can, I think from my reading, it's very restrictive, but it looks like you might be able to own 10%. So like a a large grower could have like their own captive kind of like funky craft brand that they could kind of use a little bit, but it can only have like 10% of ownership. But then also they limit your ability to hold multiple craft grow licenses. So under the statute, they've greenlit 150 is the cap, the maximum. And you're not allowed to touch more than 3. So 3 out of 150, it's very dispersed, not very vertically or centrally organized, so that you're going to have a lot of M&A, because suddenly you're going to be maxed out. It's going to be like, sorry, I have my 3 licenses. We now have to lobby the state to allow me to have 30 or however large they wanted to get. But you spoke to pivot. Right. How many of those pivots were legislative actions?
Oh boy, I think over half were because we went from medical to recreational, and then within recreational, we learned very quickly that we had to address certain regulatory requirements, and then I think within that, the customer kept changing for us. So we have pivoted more towards brands lately, because brands are the ones that are seeking to have space within dispensaries. So our customers end up being both the brands and the dispensaries in the cannabis world. It's got kind of an interesting shift that's occurred. And you know, in California, we have several hundred brands that are vying for shelf space. So it's, you know, with our machines, you're able to create your own shelf space as a brand. I think that's very unique as far as what brands are looking at doing currently in California. The trend is a pay-to-play model. Just, I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Really? All right. You're not allowed to pay to play. They say you're not allowed to pay to play in Illinois. That's what the statute provides, at least. But the question of sourcing flower is still going to come up for your retail space. Right. And so, I mean, we only have 20 players for right now, and then there's only going to be 40 craft grows, and then 60 craft grows over the next few years. We'll still have very small amount of players relative to California. How are they sourcing flower to you? I mean, you say that you're working more with brands, and then you're brokering and shelf space to your clients. How does that translate to me as an upstart cultivator getting my brand into your machine so that I can hopefully get some more sales? How do you guys source flower out west?
Yeah, so we're not plant touching in our business. We're really the shelf space for those brands and for those dispensaries. And so right now it's dictated by what the dispensary is selling. Typically, they'll want to put their top selling items or items that they know people will want to grab and go. On the brand side, to get into one of our machines, it really is a partnership with us and the brand. And then we work with that brand, creating a program to help them to penetrate the dispensaries that they would like to get into. So we're really acting in several kind of roles with these brands. It's almost like more of an outsource kind of arrangement after we introduce them to the technology and they figure out how they want to kind of implement a program for the brand. Then it's really taking what that program looks like, putting some guidelines around it, and then giving them the ability to drive that system into the dispensaries that they want to be in. And so it's, at the end of the day, we're agnostic to brand. We really work with large brands and small brands. So really, it's more of an issue of, are they the right fit for this type of technology? And does their brand have the potential of being kind of a more mass market type of brand?
What products are ideal for that situation? If, vending sells more, what is it selling more of? Obviously, if I put rice and batteries like I've seen in Japan, true story, by the way, same vending machine. Maybe that's not going to be the best product. So what does sell well?
It seems like in the grab and go scenario, it's pre-rolls, eighths of flour, small packages of edibles, things that you would think that I'm just here to grab something and I want to get out. Almost like you went and you grabbed milk and bread at the store. It's a similar thing for a cannabis user. What are their everyday kind of go-tos that they use? Could be a cartridge of a certain type. And so mostly that, we are stocking all categories for the brands and the dispensaries. So the products I see them moving through the machines are really on the flower side and concentrate side. I think those are probably their higher moving products.
Yeah, that complies with what we have here in Illinois. The stats are about right down the middle. 50% concentrate, mostly vapes, and then 50% flower, and pre-rolls are quite popular. But everything is pre-packaged in Illinois, so that would really align itself well to the usage of some type of automatic dispensing and record-keeping agent, because when it leaves the facility, it's shrink wrapped and child-proof, and it's already weighed and it's ready to get to the consumer's hand.
Right, and that's
the second largest. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Well, I was going to ask, because data is the second largest investment vehicle this year, and so you've got a nice little array from every angle. Apps, we've seen, people have to give their first child away to the developer, and everything to the vending machine from your phone is data. And so that's intriguing to me. I want to know a little bit more about what you're using the data for, what you plan on doing, and any like upgrades or future things that you might be using that data for.
Well, again, the data that's coming off of the machine is owned by our customer, which is typically a dispensary or a brand. And so what we would do is provide access to all of that data. What I assume, or what I kind of look at as the opportunities for these brands, is to really mine the data related to the consumer and figure out which products are selling through at the best rates. Also, using that data for creating a better consumer experience, and including digital into that experience, so that they're able to engage, for instance, through a mobile app where they can send out direct messaging on appearances that are going to be made by their brand ambassadors, or things that connect them to a brand. I mean, I think this is where brands struggle in this crowded scape, is that they're going to continue to struggle with this as they compete, is how do we engage directly with a consumer? I mean, I feel like our machines are the next best thing to the CEO speaking directly to the consumer, because they can. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Why would you say that?
Well, I mean, if you want to put messaging out and you want that messaging to be consistent to a consumer, the best way to do that is through a kind of programmed type of message. And so we're able to do that with the machines. I mean, it's consistent. It never changes. You don't have one bud tender saying one thing, another bud tender saying another thing with maybe a perverse kind of incentive. And so it really becomes a very standardized messaging format for your brand.
That's what you hear in every branding 101 case that you always go. It needs to have that consistency, that expectation. It needs to be the exact same thing that's replicable. Could you imagine if I walked into the McDonald's in Seattle and their burger was entirely different than if I went to the McDonald's in San Francisco, and I'm like, wow, they don't do McDonald's like they do here in Chicago. And that would create a brand nightmare. And so you really do see a payoff to these brands, because they are able to create a consistent, replicable experience with their customer through the usage of these types of solutions.
Totally. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the correct assumption.
Fascinating.
Can you infer from that data what the purchasing decision is when making the decision to go with the vending machine over traditional routes?
Absolutely. We can watch the click-throughs. We can capture that data, deliver back exactly what occurred at the machine. So we know what other products are being looked at. We know, again, I mean, this is about creating better relationships with your consumers. At the end of the day, data can be used for a bunch of things. But in our world, I think it's really just selling products. If we keep it that simple at its base, and how do we sell products better to the people that want to buy them?
Right.
I think that's the part we have to uncomplicate for these brands.
Well, I mean, so many of these people that get into the industry, that aren't necessarily the best at sales. I mean, so many companies, they may win a license and they might not understand branding, and they may not understand marketing, and they may not understand how the internet works, and it could cost them, business down the line. But when you have that data, who do you get to sell it back to? I mean, you said it. Your customers own it. So is that an extra revenue stream on your business currently, where you have access to data, or like parse it for them, or give them industry trends, or what?
Yeah, I think the very few companies have actually figured out how they're going to monetize the data. And I think that that's kind of in flux. The way I see it is that we have the mechanism to drive it. How you want to use it as a customer of ours is your choice. I think that I don't feel like it's been defined well. And I think if you talk to the data experts, some of them may have some answers, but I'd like to see the monetization kind of model to and not many are going to be able to share that with you.
Yeah, I mean, like the Analytica place that used the Facebook data to kind of swing the elections and Brexit, Cambridge Analytica. So that gets me to a question. Can I use my Facebook login to create a user account on your machine so that you can get like a pixel of me, and then use my entire Facebook profile and all the data points that they have about me in formulating what your clients may want in their cannabis products?
The answer is yes, of course we can. The consumer may be a little resistant to this. We currently have planned into the mobile app, which is a product that is under development, the ability to log in with your Google account and create a user profile. And then we use the same type of system as Airbnb to do consumer authentication or verification of identity through the mobile app. So the answer is that, of course you can. How much is it seen as an intrusion by the end user? And so we want to make sure that we stay clear of those types of issues. We don't want to be seen as the guys that are collecting data on consumers for the purpose of collecting data. We actually want to make it useful to both sides of the equation, which are the consumer and the brand and the dispensary, the retailer, so that this is kind of a full circle relationship and symbiotic relationship that is beneficial to everybody.
I just got a text for a discount code, and I'm wondering if I walk by a store that has one of your vending machines, will I get a notification to kind of come in and buy something out of your vending machine for a discount? Customized, personalized?
I think that it can through some of the systems. In the mobile app, we definitely have that option for brands and for dispensaries to do those push notifications to their consumer base. So they can do it to groups of them or to the whole base. It's kind of their choice how they like to use the system.
Pretty awesome, man. So what do you think are the trends that are coming? I mean, with what you've seen so far in your industry experience over the last 3 years, tell us what you think the rest of 2019 and into 2020 has to bring.
Oh man, I think this is going to be a crazy couple of years for us. I think we have huge expansion throughout the United States on the retail side. I think medical is expanding into recreational. We'll see several new states come online. I believe that the use of automated retail will become stronger in certain areas, technology-based areas like California and other states, probably Washington and others. And that I think it's going to become more mainstream. I think the acceptance of CBD, hemp-based CBD products is on the upswing. That industry is driving acceptance generally of the terminology CBD. So you're seeing, I'm getting calls like from my 75-year-old aunt that's asking me questions about, like, I know nothing about CBD really. I don't know much about the product. She's asking me which one she should use. And so I think utilizing technologies and like ours in the future are definitely going to be part of the retail experience. I think that they're needed to create some standardization in how people uptake information and so on. And I think there's a lot of growth potential here in all parts of the industry.
Awesome.
Well,
one thing I might add too is we are doing another seed round. It's going to be our final seed round before our A round. So if anybody out there is interested, feel free to look us up. You can grab our information from the blog and be happy to talk to you about what we're doing at Grasshopper.
Cool.
Yeah, it's starting to get to that time. But we did have a couple questions come in from Engineering Cannabis for people who just tuned in. Are the machines environmentally controlled? And for states that outlaw facial recognition, how is that going to be handled?
Yes, they are environmentally controlled. They can be temperature controlled, humidity controlled, and so on. So yeah, we have thought through that. We typically run them at a fixed temperature that adheres to pretty much all products across the board. It seems to do fine with that, but they can be refrigerated. For instance, our beverage machine is a refrigerated temperature, so you can get the beverages out cold. Not that you want to consume them as you go out the door or anything, but some places are having on-site consumption now in California.
Good.
That's kind of a trend now that there is a place near or in the facility where you can consume. So, and then the second question, Lauren?
Yes, in states that outlaw facial recognition, how is that going to be handled with your kiosks?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we didn't go with facial recognition. There's an upstart in the industry that is touting facial recognition as a methodology for verifying customers, and we wanted to go with something that was already being used, that was kind of a standard, rather than trying to push the envelope on delivering new solutions. So we don't anticipate pushing that unless it's needed by our customer, which is a brand or a dispensary. So we do offer biometric tied to our mobile app. That's the way that you enter the mobile app. And in fact, you wouldn't be able to purchase cannabis with the mobile app unless you did enter your biometric, which is what you do to open your phone now. So it's kind of a thing we're all used to and trained. I believe in working within the guidelines of what our society is desiring, rather than trying to push things onto people or requirements. It's just not the way to sell things. So. Word.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you. Where can we follow what's going on at Grasshopper Kiosks?
Well, we do post on the major social medias, but we also have a blog site embedded in our website, I believe, and directly connect to us through any of those. And we will be at MJ BizCon this year also in December. And
there was 1,000 booths at MJ BizCon last year, and Grasshopper Kiosk was one of the coolest products there. So I'm looking.
Well, thanks, Josh. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. We try really hard to be on top of what the needs of the industry are and stay focused on our customer, because I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Word. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Josh, where can we follow you?
You can catch me at thetalkinghedgepodcast.com, or you can email me at josh@thetalkinghedge.com.
Thomas?
You just Google cannabis lawyer, and then you can find me at cannabisindustrylawyer.com.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for watching. Tune in next week, and we will be talking with Armin from, well, it's a little surprise, but he's going to be discussing a little bit about cannabis and, recycling. So that'll be an interesting podcast. Tune in next week, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Looking forward to it.
2 p.m.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for putting this together. Much appreciated.
Later, guys.
Peace.
Thanks.